hostages so much, they would have done more to stop them from being taken in the first place. They had plenty of time to do that. So this is not about the hostages. The hostages, unfortunately, are pawns in order to justify Jews being killed and Israel being turned into a big smart city ghetto concentration camp. They're basically fulfilling the World Economic Forum globalist agenda. They're driving up prices. They're concentrating everybody into the big cities. They emptied out most of the border cities. They're concentrating all these people in hotels, big cities, refugees, basically, breaking up families, killing and injuring all the young men of fighting age. And they're putting up cameras all over Israel for our protection, because the cameras that work so well to prevent these truckloads of terrorists and hang gliders and bulldozers from driving into the country with nobody stopping them. They're not putting up cameras in Gaza to watch over them. They're putting up cameras over here to watch over us. This is all really a ploy for the globalist agenda to take over Israel.
Good evening, everyone. Is there more to the story about the current Israel-Hamas war than meets the eye? I asked my next guest to find out. Now, tonight's guest is certainly no stranger to Cafe Lockdown. He is a well-respected freedom activist, and during the height of the pandemic, he testified before Reiner fullmich's Tribunal about medical tyranny in Israel, and he did a lot to expose that. He also wrote a blog called 31 Reasons Why I Won't Get Vaccinated, which went viral all around the world. In addition to that, he's the founder of endthemadness.org and the author of 7 books. Rabbi Chananya Weissman, welcome back to Cafe Lockdown.
Thank you. Very good to see you again.
Terrific. Now, the last time you were on, it was during the pandemic, or at least towards the tail end of the pandemic, when the restrictions were still active. So I would just like to start by asking you, can you give us a bit of a rundown on the situation there in Israel from the perspective of medical tyranny? Is it still something that they're pushing?
Well, the medical tyranny is still very much in effect. None of the people who push this upon us initially have been prosecuted. There have been no consequences, no heads have rolled, and they still have the same goals in mind. But it's taken on a different form. Most recently, they've been very, very heavily pushing flu shots. They're not forcing people to take it. There's no laws or restrictions, but they're very, very heavily propagandizing for that. And it seems it's a similar playbook to what they did with COVID. Take the flu shot, because if you don't, then you will get infected and infect others. They put out a brochure. I just wrote an article about this. There's a brochure in all of the health clinics, basically saying we take the vaccine, the flu vaccine, and not taking the risk, which implies that there's no risk to the flu vaccine, only in not taking it. And the brochure is filled with lies and propaganda and like communist instructions. We all have to do it. We all have to save lives, but it's all baseless. And it seems to me that they're trying to harm people with these flu shots, the same as they were doing with the COVID shots, since they're following the same playbook. And also, just so happens, it seems everybody around me today seems to be sick with the flu/COVID. Very, very strange how that's working.
What's the mood like in Israel from the perspective of the whole jab rollout? Are people still, is that something that people are still very much wanting to get, or are they over it? What's the general mood?
Well, the COVID shots are pretty much dead in the water at this point. But like I said, they've just moved on to the next level of trying to kill people through the medical system. Unfortunately, due to the war, and I put the war in quotation marks, I'm sure we'll talk about that later because it's a staged war as well, people's attention have been turned away from that. They're not talking about the carnage of the COVID shots, which is ongoing, the ongoing sudden deaths, health issues, fertility issues. People are not really talking about that anymore because they moved on to the next thing. That's also part of the propaganda, is, just to always move people on to the next thing, so they stop focusing on the bigger picture.
Granted, the propaganda is quite strong. Are a lot of people waking up in Israel, though? I know that they're pushing the flu shots. Are they more skeptical? More and more people more skeptical about that than otherwise?
It's hard for me to say. The flu shot is kind of like the polio shot. It's sort of like their golden egg that everybody believes in. The polio shot is the gold standard of vaccines, and the flu shot is like the proven, also the shot that always works. So it's harder to break people's fears and doubts about that, to really get into people's minds and say, you know what, there is more to be looked at over here. It's not as proven. It's not as safe as they're claiming. But I think overall there is more skepticism in general of the health system, which is a good thing. The problem is people are not waking up fast enough. They're not waking up fast enough, and people are getting sick and dying. It's just an ongoing problem.
Tell us a little bit about the excess deaths. In Australia, we have a record excess deaths not seen since World War II, actually higher since World War II. What's the situation like in Israel from that point of view?
So that I don't know. I haven't been following it. I can only speak from anecdotal evidence, and lots of people are continuing to die. There's always reports coming out of young people dying suddenly, women who suddenly can't give birth anymore. Birth rates are way, way low throughout the country. So clearly these are effects of the shots, but I don't have actual graphs and charts. I haven't been following that lately.
Sure. Now let's move on to the current situation. So we've had one PSYOP in 2020, 2021, and now you're saying they've moved on. They moved on to another PSYOP, or a way to distract the population. So October 7th, in relation to something really strange happened there. So we had the most secure border breached. Apparently it was an intelligence failure, according to the official narrative, and it was also coordinated by Iran. They somehow were able to hack the security cameras, and they were able to somehow position drones to bomb the watchtowers, etc. Was it an intelligence failure? Should we believe the official narrative?
I don't believe, first of all, I don't believe any official narratives, and I certainly don't believe that it's an intelligence failure. But even if theoretically, let's say it was true, it was the worst intelligence failure in the history of human intelligence and military campaigns. Why are there no heads rolling? Why, before we march into a war, do we not first replace all the people who are responsible for this colossal intelligence failure that even a small child wouldn't have been able to fail to that extent? So even if it was true, we shouldn't be proceeding in the course of action that we're doing. But it's very hard to believe that Israel knows when they're flushing a toilet thousands of miles away, but they can't see with their own eyes what's happening over the border. And the fact is, this was happening in real time. Half the country knew as the attacks were happening in progress. People were besieged in their homes, in their safe rooms, where terrorists were rolling down the street in trucks, just shooting at people and walking around leisurely, raping people, torturing people, looting the dead, burning the homes. This was going on for hours and hours and hours and hours. You don't need cameras for this. This was happening in real time. The terrorists were live streaming it on the internet. Okay, people were calling frantically for help, and no help came for at least 7 hours. In some places, much longer than that. People don't realize how small Israel is. You're able to take a bus from one end of the country to the other end and back in 7 hours, meaning any human being in Israel could have stopped what they were doing and gotten to the war front and helped the people who were under siege, and didn't do it on a bus. There were helicopters minutes away that stayed grounded for hours and hours and hours while the explosions were within earshot. So this clearly could not be an intelligence failure. There's clearly something more to it than that.
Now, before I go into my next question, you happen to be very pro-Israel, pro the Jewish people, not necessarily Israeli government. So I just want to clarify that for my audience. And you're not, I wouldn't call you pro-Palestinian or pro
I don't think there's such a thing as a Palestinian. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. It's a fake people, and they don't have a country, and they never will. It's a fake people.
And just out of interest, why would you say that?
Because they never existed. Who was their first leader? Where did they come from? What was their language? What was their currency? What's their history? It's just a fake people that was fabricated. A bunch of random Arabs that happened to be living in a geographical area decided one day that now this is our land and all of Israel belongs to us, and the Jews have no history. They just flip everything.
The name Palestine, is that an Arabic name?
No, it's a Roman name. When the Romans conquered Israel thousands of years ago, they changed the name to Palestina. Now these Arabs, who have nothing to do with these Romans, who can't even pronounce the word Palestina, decided that they're all Palestinians, and they have a new nation with this long, glorious history.
Sure.
There's no such thing. All of these people are squatters.
Sure. Okay. So now I want to ask my next, because you've got some interesting views. So for someone that's very obviously pro the land of Israel, pro the Jewish people, but you look at things through a very critical lens. I think that makes you unusual from a lot of other people that may share your views in relation to being very pro the Jewish people and pro the land of Israel. So you called the Bring Them Home campaign to bring the hostages back. You called that a propaganda campaign.
That's a massive, because it's a massive psyop. If you look at their website, bringthemhome.org, they state that this campaign, which is plastering the entire country with massive billboards, glossy posters everywhere you go, bring them home now, bring them home now. We won't stop fighting till we bring them home now. all over the place. It was started less than 24 hours after the attack on October 7th by the families of the abductees themselves. Now, you think for yourself. Let's say, God forbid, this was your loved one who was just kidnapped, possibly brutally tortured to death, taken hostage. Within 24 hours, are you going to start a massive campaign and print flyers and plaster the country? You'd be too traumatized to do anything, right? You wouldn't even be able to think straight. But the families of the abductees did this. Which families? Name me one family that did this. They won't do that. That's what they claim on the website. The story itself makes no sense. The website was registered 3 days after the attack on October 7th by a large international advertising company, which Leo Hohmann Advertising Company, which happens to be the same company that worked with the Ministry of Health during the COVID years. They had a contract with them. And this is all open source information. I put this into an article. Just so happens that some of the same people that were marketing the COVID PSYOP are marketing this Bring Them Home campaign as well. How did these families in the South who live in little settlements, they pulled together all this money? It cost millions and millions, probably billions of shekels to put up these massive billboards. They managed to pull all this together. I find that extremely hard to believe. So what's really going on is they want to focus everybody on the fact that there are hostages, and therefore that justifies an ongoing war with no clear goal in sight, no end in sight. They haven't, by the way, rescued any hostages at all. The only story in the news related to hostages is a bizarre story that during the fighting, 3 hostages managed to escape their captors. They were basically naked. They were waving a white flag, and then the IDF shot them dead. One of them was injured and ran back into the house and came back in, and then they finished him off. So that whole story makes absolutely no sense, because we know from Israel, the soldiers are petrified of shooting anything without having a lawyer next to them, because otherwise a world court will sue them and international opinion will say the Jews are worse than the Nazis, right? But here they had Jews speaking Hebrew, stripped naked, waving a white flag, begging for help, and happened to be the hostages, and those are the people that they shot dead. So they haven't rescued any hostages so far. The carnage to the IDF is piling up. Thousands and thousands of dead and wounded. They're decimating the Jewish fighting force without having rescued any hostages whatsoever. We don't know where the hostages are. We don't know what state they're in. We don't know where we're fighting. There's no clear objective. Just this nebulous thing, we're going to keep doing this until we bring them home. It's just an excuse to keep sending them into the meat grinder, which, by the way, they didn't do the day after the attack. They waited 3 full weeks, ostensibly to gather all the troops and give them training exercises, because apparently troops haven't been training until now. They waited 3 weeks for Gaza to become a fully booby-trapped death trap, and then they sent them into the meat grinder. And you're telling me that there's no way that they can blow up all these tunnels? These startup nation can't find a way to blow up tunnels without sending Jewish soldiers into these booby trap tunnels? They can't find some high-tech way of smoking out the enemy? We have to go low-tech as possible and drive all these people to their deaths? It doesn't make any sense. But if you have a propaganda campaign, we're doing it to bring them home. What, you don't care about the hostages? You're a horrible human being. What if it was your own loved one who was a hostage? Wouldn't you want to send the entire Jewish people into some meat grinder to be killed and maimed to save your loved one? Of course you would. So you have to support the war, support the troops. Don't think about it.
So that's an interesting perspective. So they were essentially distracting the population with this whole PR campaign, this what you term a propaganda campaign with the hostages, to justify sending young soldiers as young as 18, 19 on suicide missions.
And it's not just that. The older ones, they have the reservists. You have men in their 30s, 40s, 50s with wives and children and businesses that are being taken away from their homes for months on end. Even if they're not killed and maimed, they're decimating the entire economy. They're breaking up families. There's practically no food growing. I went shopping yesterday for produce. Strawberries, they used to be in Israel 6 shekels for a kilo. It's about $1.50 to $2 for a kilo of strawberries. Now it's 60. It went up 10 times because most of the produce is grown in the South. They emptied all the farms of the Thai workers, the foreign workers. They sent them all home. So even if they're growing food, there's nobody to actually pick it and send it over here. They're basically fulfilling the World Economic Forum globalist agenda. They're driving up prices. They're concentrating everybody into the big cities. They emptied out most of the border cities. They're concentrating all these people in hotels, big cities, refugees, basically, breaking up families, killing and injuring all the young men of fighting age. And they're putting up cameras all over Israel for our protection, because the cameras that work so well to prevent these truckloads of terrorists and hang gliders and bulldozers from driving into the country with nobody stopping them. They're not putting up cameras in Gaza to watch over them. They're putting up cameras over here to watch over us. This is all really a ploy for the globalist agenda to take over Israel. That's really what's going on.
Right. I was going to ask you, that was my next question, but you've answered it. So you're saying that this is all by design in order to create smart cities and surveillance, a lot of surveillance. And you didn't
Yep.
mention this, but I'm assuming you would add depopulation as well.
Well, correct. 15 minutes. Well, the best way to depopulate people is to kill all the men who are capable of having children and drive up prices and everything. They're doing a great job of that. I mean, long term, all these young men and married men are being injured and killed. Who are the women going to marry and have children? Right? So that's clearly a big problem. They're putting up 15-minute cities, these massive, ugly apartment buildings and business buildings all over the big, really, really ugly. I mean, Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, when you enter the city, all over the place is war propaganda. Bring them home. We won't stop until we're victorious. All over the place. And then the next thing you see is these huge, ugly buildings that are going up all over the place in tunnels. That's pretty much all they're building. It is. They have plenty of time for that. Bibi just came out that the prime minister's office sent out a press release that Israel's the first country now to start officially authorizing fake meat. They have plenty of time to do that in the middle of a war. And our good friend Albert Bourla from Pfizer, I'm not making this up. Somebody shared with me. He wrote an article for Time magazine, also advocating to bring home the hostages. Bourla, and he closed it by saying, "What would you do if it was your loved one?" So I would say, "Well, what would I do if somebody murdered my loved one with a poison shot?" Well, Bourla, of all people, is advocating to bring home the hostages. And at Davos, the Davos conference, they also had a whole thing about bringing home the hostages. So it's very, very clear who's taking sides over here. I don't want to stand with those people. Anything those people are doing is clearly against us. They're not interested in the hostages. If they cared about the hostages so much, they would have done more to stop them from being taken in the first place. They had plenty of time to do that. So this is not about the hostages. The hostages, unfortunately, are pawns in order to justify Jews being killed and Israel being turned into a big smart city ghetto concentration camp. The hostages are simply being used for that.
Interestingly, the Davos clique, at least part of it, Tedros from the WHO, Greta Thunberg, they've come out to support the Palestinians. So I guess they're supporting both sides of the equation.
Well, the fact is both sides play for the same team. Like Coke and Pepsi are both owned by BlackRock. There is no left and right. There is no Israel and Palestine. They're both fighting the same. They're both being funded by the same sources. Okay, and don't tell me Israel didn't know that this attack was. It's already been documented, even the mainstream fake media, that there were warnings about this for months on end about the preparations for this attack, what was going to happen, and they ignored it and even threatened people that were giving the warnings that they would be arrested or punished otherwise if they kept on sounding the alarm about this. So Israel knew about this. Okay, this was not an intelligence failure. This was a choice that they made. So look, most of the Israeli government works for the World Economic Forum. They're on their website. Right-wingers, left-wingers, these politicians sitting in the Israeli Knesset have sold their souls to the World Economic Forum. The rest of them are probably falling into a line. So we've all been sold out. We're all slaves. There's nobody who's really fighting to save us. The poor Jewish soldiers that are following orders to go in and fight have their hearts in the right place, but the people giving the orders are not working for us. They're not looking out for our best interests.
And you've also been critical of the fundraising campaign as well. So tell us a little bit about, give us your insight on that, bring them home fundraising.
Well, it's not just to bring them home, but the Jewish people all over the world, and again, they have the rights in the hard place, but unfortunately, there's suckers being drawn in by the propaganda. They're claiming that they have to raise money to buy the soldiers food and gear and all kinds of things. First of all, where's the billions of shekels that we're paying in taxes every year? About 25% of the national budget is going to the IDF. And you're telling me that we need the Jews worldwide to start raising charity to buy the soldiers shoes, underwear, toothbrushes, chocolate bars, and basic gear? That's kind of hard to believe. So what is this really all about? By the way, the soldiers are not really getting the money. What's really going on over here is, again, it's getting the worldwide Jewry to support what is basically a Holocaust. They're making events for the soldiers. They're making barbecues. They're flying on missions from all over the world to go visit the soldiers and give them strength and sing songs with them and take videos with them. By the way, it's very strange that it's too dangerous for the citizens of the South and the North to live in their homes, but it's perfectly safe for Jews from all over the world to fly there on missions to enter a war zone, to make prayer groups and sing songs and take videos and tour the abandoned cities. It's perfectly safe for them to do that. These same Jews, by the way, were scared to live in Israel because it's too dangerous, but they're actually entering a war zone. That's perfectly safe, clearly because it's orchestrated that, Hamas is not going to fire rockets on these people this time because it's all part of the propaganda campaign. And the world Jewry is getting sucked into it because they want to wave the flag and sing the songs and support their people, but it's all communism. It's not Judaism. They're not thinking about what's really going on. It would break their hearts to come to the conclusion that what poses as a Jewish state is very far from it. What poses as a Jewish army is very far from it. And therefore, it's hard for them to separate their love for the Jewish people and the land of Israel and their hopes for what would be a better future from what currently exists, which is actually an enemy that's trying to destroy the Jewish people inside our own land.
And Rabbi Chananya Weissman, you've also been very critical of all the videos that were released by the IDF, particularly IDF soldiers, of dancing soldiers in various sites, and you compared that to the dancing nurses of COVID. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly right. Look, they're pulling out the same tricks, right? During COVID, we're all dying. The hospitals are overwhelmed, but the doctors are going to rise above the stress and start dancing and show that we're going to win. We're going to succeed. Same thing with the soldiers. We're entering a death trap, but we're going to make ourselves feel good. We'll make you feel good about it. It's kind of like playing music for the Jews as they're entering the gas chambers in Auschwitz. Let's go dance and sing and then go enter a booby trap tunnel.
And also,
we're just rallying around that. Everybody's just rallying around this without stopping to think, wait a second, is this really a good idea? Is this really worth it? Again, it has nothing to do with saving hostages. It's just from both a military strategy and just basic common sense. It's just what we should be doing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't fight a war. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to rescue hostages. Of course not. But is this really the way we should be doing things? We can't stop and think that because we're too busy either in a state of ecstasy with the dancing or in a state of fear. They make us go to these extremes of the extremes of emotions, the high and the lows. They pull us on a string, and they don't let us just stop and think for a minute calmly, clearly, what's really going on. What is a good idea? We are not allowed to ask questions. We're not allowed to criticize. We can't challenge. We just have to wave the flag and sing the slogans and raise money and just support the next thing because that's what everybody's doing. That's communism. It's not Judaism.
The official excuse and narrative is we're in war, so we have to be united. We all have to stick together.
Of course, right, sticking together. And again, if you criticize anything that's going on, you're breaking up. First of all, we're not unified. The Jewish people have not been unified except for a couple of moments in their history. There's nothing wrong with saying, I love you very much as a brother or a sister, but I disagree or I have a question. That's not breaking up unity. The threat to the Jewish people is not being allowed to ask questions. That's not unity. That's forcing people to conform to something. That's not unity. Unity means I love you even if I have some questions or doubts about things that are happening.
And you mentioned before about a refugee crisis in Israel. So over 100,000. So these are Jewish refugees.
More than that.
Basically
about 500,000 now at least. It's about 500,000. Israel only. It's about 20% of the population is either a refugee or in Gaza. So who's managing the farms? Who's running the businesses? Who's running the households? Who's teaching the children in school? Go find a doctor to treat you. They're all in Gaza right now. The country's falling apart.
And it's not just the south. It's also the north. What's going on in the north?
The same thing, because the tensions are heating up. I think they're trying to start a war up north as well. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but they basically moved thousands and thousands of troops up there as well and emptied out many of the cities. So the same thing kind of is going on, all of the border cities, and then the Jews have been concentrated into a small area. By the way, in a time of war, you don't give away land and empty your cities. You stand and protect those cities. You conquer more land. You don't give up your land and move the people in. But that's what they're doing, because this is an easy way of giving away the land of Israel to our enemies and concentrating our Jews into 15-minute ghettos.
Is there anything going on with Hezbollah up in the north? So you got Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south. Is there some kind of conflagration or rocket attacks or anything like that?
There have been, I mean, from what I've heard, there have been small things here and there. There haven't been any major incidents. Maybe they're waiting to blow it up at some point. Maybe Hezbollah is not playing along. Who really knows? I mean, I don't read the mainstream news anymore because I don't trust it. And I'd rather not fill my head with lies and try to pick out the small grain of truth. I try to get my information from people close to the source, and I don't really know what's going on up north. But the bottom line is there hasn't been a big war starting up, which is probably to our benefit. But even so, at the same time, the cities are still being emptied out, and the soldiers are being taken away from their homes and families and businesses. And the longer this goes on, the worse it is for the whole rest of the country. So the damage to the country is very hard. They're doing the same thing they did during COVID. People are huddling in their safe rooms, which is basically lockdowns. The businesses are closed. Businesses are shutting down right and left. The rich are getting richer. They're tightening up the surveillance and the restrictions on the people. It's the same agenda that they did with COVID, but it's taking a different form.
I think they were trying to push some legislation through the Knesset where it made it illegal. You would get jail time for questioning the official narrative or saying that there was something odd. Did they pass that legislation?
As of now, they have not passed it, but who knows? And if they retroactively decide to go after people, that could be, who knows? I mean, that they're trying to, the mere fact that they're even talking about this, about not being allowed to ask a question. The only people that would pass legislation against being allowed to ask questions are the people who are criminals themselves, who know that by asking questions, they will be found accountable. I don't have a problem with people asking questions. You don't have a problem with people. The soldiers, I'm sure, don't have a problem with people asking questions. There's a very small group of people that don't want you asking questions, and those are the guilty ones who happen to have all the power.
Are you aware of anyone that's been prosecuted for asking questions or for going off the script?
I haven't heard that yet, but I know that they've been confiscating weapons from Jews who live in small settlements, and and people who have resisted that or called for people to resist that have been arrested. So that they're giving up their personal weapons that they need to protect their families and their cities. That the people have been arrested for this.
Have they been confiscating weapons from Arab Israelis and Palestinians?
I don't know. On the contrary, they're probably giving them weapons. I mean, that's pretty much all they've been doing for the last few decades. It's giving them weapons and training them and looking the other way while they're building all over the place. But if a Jew builds an extension to his porch somewhere, suddenly the whole world comes down on him.
And I'm curious to know, you spoke about in your podcast and your blogs, you mentioned an organization called Merit Spread Foundations. Can you give us some insights on that and what you found out about this foundation?
Very little, unfortunately. There's very little out there about them. The only thing I was really able to find is that they serve as the conduit for money to go to the Bring Them Home campaign. Basically, this is a new organization. It was started in April, and their stated purpose is to make it easier for nonprofits to cut through red tape and get funding. And it just so happens that this brand new propaganda campaign, Bring Them Home, is using them. That basically, when you donate money to bring them home, it seems that it goes through this Merit Foundation, then they give them the money. Who's in charge of it, how the money's being spent, it's anybody's guess. Why they're doing it through them, it's anybody's guess. But one thing, and I just floated this in the article, it's just a theory. I have no evidence. I just have to protect myself because I'm not making an accusation here. But I'm just putting something out there that I found, and that is that this Merit Foundation was founded in April, as I said, which coincides with the Pesach, the Passover holiday. And some people have said that this attack was meant to happen on the Passover holiday. These things tend to happen on the Jewish holidays. They want to spoil all of our Jews. So from now on, every time the Jewish holiday comes, we'll be thinking about this tragedy instead of being able to celebrate the holiday properly. And it could just be that, had this war happened on Passover, then the Bring Them Home campaign would have started then, and then use this foundation that just so happened to have started then. Again, I don't know if there's necessarily a link between the two, but it's worth questioning while we're still allowed to ask questions.
And you noted something interesting. You noted that traveling through ultra-Orthodox communities in Israel, you wouldn't see any of these Bring Them Home posters. Why is that? You won't
see one or any of these unity posters either. Well, apparently because they run out of posters exactly when they enter the streets, because a lot of these communities are in mixed neighborhoods. Like some streets are considered like ultra-Orthodox or whatever. That's where the neighborhood begins. And then others are more mixed. And you will not see a single poster by their bus stops, by their clinics. They'll have the flu shot propaganda, but they won't have this. And the reason for this is not because the religious Jews don't care about hostages of human life. On the contrary, they care about it the most, but because the people who are running this propaganda campaign are not targeting them with this particular message because they tend to have very few of their loved ones in the army. So there's less of a reason to propagandize for them to support the war. They don't have their own loved ones in the war. The rest of the country, the Dati Leumi, the national religious, and the people who are not religious at all, who tend to populate the bulk of the army, they need to be propagandized, keep sending their loved ones into this death trap and keeping them there for months on end. So it's also very clear that this is a propaganda campaign, because if it was just about caring about hostages or being unified, you wouldn't distinguish between neighborhoods and streets. You just put up the posters everywhere, even somewhat randomly. But I have not seen one poster in any of these so-called ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods. And that's not by chance.
And interestingly, while the war's dragging on, as we're speaking, Davos is taking place, probably just finished. But I know that Rebel News was out there trying to interview people. A lot of the people there were dodging questions, particularly John Kerry. Have you got any insights in relation to any of your own insights in relation to Davos or the globalists and their plans? If we were to talk generally and not just about the situation in Israel, that you'd like to share with us? Sorry, Rabbi, I lost you.
Yeah, I lost you.
I'm not sure what happened. My connection went off. We're still recording, which is great. I was just asking you in relation to Davos as we speak. I believe it may have just finished, but have you got any insights that you would like to share on what's happening with the globalists and their agenda generally, not just in relation to Israel?
Right. I'm not following them that closely anymore. I've really been focused on what's happening here in Israel. But look, it's the same people. They haven't stopped trying to kill us. People need to keep this in mind. The people who work for them, which is pretty much everybody in the world governments and everybody who has any power today, they're trying to kill you, and they're trying to do it in various ways. And they also run the entire media, and they also control all of these so-called alternative media as well. Anybody who's still on YouTube and they have a lot of followers, they're either directly work for them or they're simply a useful idiot. You have to understand you cannot trust anything you read in the media ever. You cannot trust anything your government says ever. These people are your enemies and they're trying to kill you. They're trying to trick you and they're trying to kill you. Once you know that, what you do with that information, I don't exactly know. But at least don't walk into their traps. Don't listen to what they say. Don't trust what they say. Don't follow their narratives. Don't argue the points that they want you to be arguing. Pretty much do the opposite of what they say and think the opposite of what they want you to think. And that would be a good rule of thumb.
Also, just for people that are listening, whether it's in Australia or in other countries that might not be connected to the conflict and what's going on in Israel, and they're hearing this, that perhaps there was a psyop, perhaps, there are a lot of holes in the official narrative from the Israel side. And that could potentially lead one to think, well, perhaps the Palestinian side, Hamas, perhaps they're innocent in all of this. How would you respond to that?
Well, they're clearly not. They've devoted their entire existence to killing Jews. Anytime you give them money, they're going to spend it on killing Jews. That's what they teach in the schools. That's all they're dedicated to. There's nothing good coming out of Gaza. Anybody who thinks that they're innocent is basically fooling themselves, and they're doing it on purpose. And I would question their motives for doing so. And I'm not going to get sucked into arguments trying to prove that the Jews are the good guys and the Arabs are the bad guys, and we're actually not the Nazis. I'm not trying to convince the world that I'm not a Nazi. Anybody who thinks I'm a Nazi, good for you. Okay, you can think whatever you want. I'm not interested in playing that game and arguing with people that Hamas is the bad guys and Israel is the good guys and right wing and left wing. That's just not a game I'm willing to get sucked into because it's pointless. It's really fruitless and it's a waste of time and energy. And it also only gives strength to the enemies by making you argue their points. I'm not willing to argue the fact that I'm not a Nazi. I'm willing to surrender the point to anybody who thinks that the Jewish people are a bunch of Nazis. I'm not interested in even dealing with them. If they want to fight us, and let them join Hamas and fight with them. And they'll get what's coming to them too. Hashem, God is going to stand up for the Jewish people. In the end, we're going to be saved. And anybody who chooses the wrong side will get what's coming to the wrong side. So I tell everybody, either choose your side very carefully or simply stay out of it.
And Rabbi Weissman, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience tonight?
Well, after all of that sunny, positive outlook, the truth is it really is optimistic. I'd like to share with your audience that as bleak as things look, your government is trying to kill you. Your media is lying to you. Your rights are being infringed more and more every single day. You're getting crunched into a death trap no matter how much you try to avoid it. You think that you're going to run away and make a homestead. They have plans for that too. There's really no way out. And the good thing about having no way out is that eventually it forces people to turn to God and realize that we're not going to win by voting smarter because they control the elections. We're not going to win by fighting because we can't defeat them with violence. I've never advocated violence. We're not going to win by suing them in the courts because they run the courts. The only thing that we can do is to truly unify under God, to really turn to God, to repent for our sins, to beg God to save us. That's what works. And in a sense, people don't like that because it makes them feel powerless. But the truth is that we are powerless. And the sooner we realize that and turn to God, that's when we get our power. That's when we get our strength. I'm not afraid of the enemies and what they might do because I'm trying my best to walk with God. I'm far from perfect. I'm not a saintly human being, but I try my best to do things the right way and walk with God. And therefore, if you're doing that, then you know that God will look out for you. It doesn't mean you'll never suffer in life. It doesn't mean nothing bad will ever happen to you, but it means that you're going to get the best possible outcome within the environment in which which you are living. The best possible outcome will only come from going with God. And that's what we all need to do. And when a critical mass of people does that, particularly the Jewish people in Israel, that's what Hashem is waiting for to save us. He's not waiting for Jews to arm themselves and overthrow the government or flatten Gaza or make these vigilante forces to protect their own neighborhoods. That's putting their strength in guns. I'm not saying nobody should get a gun if they have a gun license, but you shouldn't feel safer because you have a gun. You're only going to be safe if God watches over you. So we all have to do what we can to get God to watch over us more. We're not keeping the Torah properly. We're not doing things the right way, at least enough of us, a critical mass. And that's what the focus needs to be on, not on raising money, not on freeing the hostages, not on waving the flag, not on unifying or supporting the IDF. It's strictly doing what God wants us to do, and then everything else will fall into place.
Now, Rabbi Weissman, you have a website. I think it's chananyaweissman.com. How else can people find you on social media? Do you have a presence on social media?
A very, very limited presence on social media. I don't want anything to do with social media. I have a Telegram channel. People can contact me through that. I have some books for sale if people want to support my work. I don't try to monetize anything I do, but I have written some books that are available that people can buy on Amazon on a wide range of subjects. And just in general, people can sign up to read my articles. I appreciate when people share them with others. And slowly, we start waking people up. I don't think social media is the way to go. I think we have to, each person speaks to his family, friends, and neighbors, and then slowly we build things up from the ground. You have to try to reach a small number of people, and they reach a small number of people, and that's how things really grow.
Great. And you've also got a Rumble channel, so I'll post all the links in the description and on the screen as well. Rabbi Weissman, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Always good to have you on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Levi, and thank you for all the good work that you're doing.